So Tucker Carlson just did a 2.5-hour long interview with Andrew Tate on his new show that is based solely on Twitter, and it's called Tucker on Twitter. Not the best name in my opinion, given that Twitter could get sold to someone else easily.
We really
I don't know
missed
about
out.
the expiration date of the platform.
We really missed out on Tucker Carlson takes during the Tucker stuff, like the Tuck stuff for Target during Pride Month.
Yeah.
We really missed out on some fantastic takes.
I watched the whole thing. I can't believe I actually did. How much of it did you watch, Brett?
About half.
Okay. Yeah. So.
And the clips that various people, like Benny Johnson posted a bunch of clips from it. Various people, they posted their takes from different parts of the. So probably more if you cumulatively count the clips that I watched after the fact.
It's got a lot of views so far, and Elon Musk has reposted it. I think before we get into any of the serious stuff, let's start with the fun stuff. So I wanted to remark on, like, Tucker is just absolutely in love with Andrew Tate. Like,
oh, like he looks like he's found his new life partner. It was awesome. It was hilarious.
He was eating it up, and they were like bonding over their mutual love of nicotine and caffeine. I know Tucker is definitely into the Zins.
I love the boat shoes.
And they're both wearing boat shoes with no socks. They're kind of twinning.
They're not boat shoes. They're loafers. They're both wearing. It's very, very rich guy to be wearing the loafers with no.
And
no
I assume
socks.
that they're doing this in Andrew Tate's house while he's still on house arrest. So Tucker flew all the way to Romania to do this.
Must be nice.
And then he also, during this interview, called out Adam 22 for cucking with his wife, Lena the Plug, who just did her first porn scene with another man other than her husband. And Adam 22 has just been making a complete fool of himself.
I think we can play
trying to be in on the joke.
I think we can play that clip because it's on Twitter. So here we go.
No. There's a guy called Adam 22. Once again, I have no idea who this man is. I just saw on Twitter yesterday that he was with a porn star who'd never done a male scene. They got married, and like a week after their marriage, she did her first male scene with some random dude. And he's on a podcast defending it.
Did his wife have sex with somebody else?
Correct. Why? Like, this is the level you could, but this is what the Matrix wants from you as a man. They want the woman in charge and the man below with no backbone, because if the woman's in charge, they can emotionally affect her. They can scare her. You can scare a woman easier than you can scare a man. A man. A real man's hard to scare. A woman you can make afraid of the vaccine, right? Be afraid, COVID, be scared. If she's in charge of the household, I would argue in nearly any household where the female was dominant, everyone's vaccinated.
I had a friend who was telling me how basically in his house he had when he decided not to get vaccinated, he basically said like he had to give her an explanation as to why. Like she's like and he had to show her all the research, all of the information. He didn't just do it on a whim. He did a endless amount of research as to why he's choosing not to get vaccinated. He shared that with her. So he's right.
But to some people, the facts don't matter. Like, you can show them any amount of facts and studies, and they're still going to be dogmatically allegiant to whatever it is that the media has told them to believe. But that has nothing to do with the Adam 22 situation. I think, okay, it's a little bit more complicated than that in reality, because I believe that Adam 22 has kind of pressured her into continuing to do porn, even though they're in no position where they have to do anything like that. Even after having a kid, it's just very weird, and I can't imagine what that kid is going to go through, like, seeing that these are the people that have raised them. But now she, I think, is like trying to turn the tables on him and make it more fair, and kind of, it's like shit. It's a shit test. It's a dare. That's like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's like, well, you're not going to protect me, so I'm just going to belong to anyone else other than you.
I disagree in a lot of respects. I think that the degeneracy is just so heavily embedded in our culture right now that they don't even think of it that deeply. Like, that's just who they are.
But on a more subconscious level.
Yeah. Perhaps like if you're saying like she's not like without even thinking about it, that's just how she viscerally reacts to it.
Adam 22 has for the longest time filmed scenes with other women.
Yeah. Which
So-
is why, so to be fair, so
And
to
if she
him,
on a subconscious level doesn't approve of that and is bothered by that, which she should be because this is the father of her child and her husband,
yeah.
then it's the visceral reaction is to just turn the tables on him and try to take the power back in that dynamic. And it's
Then
very
why get married
toxic.
at all?
I know, why get married at all if you don't believe that marriage means anything or that there's any monogamy or exclusivity in
I
it.
think a lot of times, especially whether it's the political space around here or the social space of people who talk for a living, you have this tendency because you have to go search out meaning and motive for people who do things. I think we just live in a culture right now where a lot of people are on autopilot and just go with whatever the culture tells them is okay. And if that's their
It's
bag, that's what they want, then I guess that's... And then you've got
It's so
people...
ridiculous because Adam 22 would be like, oh, well, if she went and had sex with some other guy, then that would be cheating. That would be wrong. But as long as you film it, then that's okay, sweetie. Stamp of approval.
It's like the meme. It's like you get arrested for prostitution, and you're like, "But we're filming it," and so now it's just porn.
It's insane.
No, I think a lot of it with people like that, it's not so deep. It really is that like we just live in a culture where we've degenerated all of our ideas of relationships, commitment, and how we see the opposite sex down to everyone should be able to do what they want. You should never feel ashamed of any type of urge or desire. You should, not only that, but you should act on it, because if you don't act on it, you're being oppressed or prevented in some fashion. We really just want to have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And I think that his relationship and the relationship of anyone in that world that, you or I may not really understand because we don't live that life, it really doesn't come down to anything so deep. It's just they choose to live differently than you. And I don't know if it's so much that they think about it that heavily. It's just how they live their lives.
I think all of that I'm talking about is on the subconscious level. But Andrew Tate talked about masculinity and the broken dynamic between the sexes quite a lot in this interview. Here's some quotes from it. He said, "You could have a pretty good life if you just followed the rules. I don't think that's true anymore." He's talking about like in days past. He said, "Men in the current time who do what they're told are likely to end up depressed, in debt, working a job that you hate, with a wife who doesn't respect you, with kids who don't listen to you." He claimed powerful societal forces do not care about masculine happiness. And he claims that
He's right about that.
men are naturally going to have mental health issues if they have no pride, which he claims is inherent to being a man.
The issue that I have with, he points out that in the UK, Britain always talks about men's mental health. Men's sewer slide rates are much higher than women's, but that's because what he's suggesting, and again, whatever your judgments are and whether he's guilty of the crimes, I'm just talking about the advice he's given. He gives you, for the most part, in his tamest advice, a non-medicinal, non-therapeutic way of bettering your life, and that goes against everything that mainstream press and government wants you to do. They want you medicated, they want you in therapy, they want you subservient. So he's not wrong about that.
The proposed solution to the mental health crisis among men now is that men should just be more open with their feelings and they should cry a lot.
Well, what if you're Jonah Hill
whatever,
and then she shares it on the internet?
Right. Well, they're projecting women's, I guess, mental health and emotionality onto men when that's not their experience. That's not the way that they think. And they think any emotion is acceptable for men except for anger. Especially righteous anger. If you're angry about something that's unjust, that's an emotion that's totally out of bounds for their, framework. And if you're not addressing men's anger, you're not going to solve the mental health crisis that they're facing. So he talked a lot about that in the interview. I agreed with a lot of the things that he said in the interview, but at the same time, I could tell that because he's so media trained, he's very capable at making his opinions palatable to the person he's talking to and to the people that he knows will be watching Tucker Carlson. So everything he's saying to Tucker Carlson is like stuff that Tucker is going to be hooing and hawing at and like approving of. And Tucker is like eating it up, not realizing that, Andrew Tate has more interesting and controversial opinions than any of the ones that he was really saying on this podcast. Like, I'm sorry, you have more interesting things to say and put on the table than like, Aren't these neo pronouns crazy, Tuck? Aren't these Z-zer pronouns insane?
Those
huh?
attack helicopters,
It's
I
like-
tell you.
Like, I know Andrew Tate has more interesting things to say than boilerplate Fox News talking points. And that's kind of
You can
what he
take-
was sticking to in this interview.
You
And
can
it
take
wasn't
the
as interesting
Tucker Carlson
as it
out
could
of the
have
Fox News, but you can't take the Fox News out of
Right.
the Tucker Carlson.
Exactly. And I don't. I agree with a lot of things that he said in the interview and a lot of things he said in general. But I don't.
It's his generalities that are always the most palatable.
Sure. I don't listen to Andrew Tate interviews because I believe in his personal holiness as an individual. And I don't think that his fans should either. But if you're taking everything this guy says as gospel, you're going down the wrong path, because like he contradicts himself all the time. And that's where I wanted to get into the more serious stuff. Toward the beginning of the interview, they did talk about his detainment in Romania, the investigation, and the charges that Romanian prosecutors have put up against him on June 30th. And he summarized the charges in a way that omitted a lot of the facts and didn't accurately portray what he's getting accused of. He said that this is he's getting accused of human trafficking by setting up women with TikTok accounts and stealing the money that they made off of TikToks. And this is also what Tristan Tate said in the stream that they did on Rumble somewhat recently. And it's not the whole truth. It's not even close to scratching the surface of what he was accused of. The actual charges, if you go to the DICOT website for Romania and then you like Google Translate into English what they have accused him of, the charges include R-word, human trafficking and forming organized crime group, and money laundering. There are a couple of other charges as well. It's really hard to get information about this. First of all, because the mainstream media is so bad at reporting on Andrew Tate, because they're so lazy and the turnaround time for news is so fast that they don't even do the proper work to look into what's going on. They just say, he's been charged with human trafficking, and here's some bullet point quotes of misogynistic things that he said in his YouTube videos before, and hit publish. But the YouTubers, weirdly enough, are doing the actual investigative work that mainstream journalists are not willing to do. And they found that, you know, he's actually omitting a lot of the truth about what this case is brought up against him. So, first of all, the prosecution has posted a lot of screenshots of private conversations between him and his the other two Romanian nationals who were charged in this, and his brother, and some of the women who were working for this cam site. The reality of the situation is that the cam site that he started, it was a fake company, and it evolved over time to be the employees were running OnlyFans accounts that were connected to TikTok accounts. They made TikToks that promoted their OnlyFans, and he would take a cut of the OnlyFans money. The cut was 70%, and they got 30%. And he's admitted on video to taking that 70% cut and lying to the girls, saying that he needed to take more than 50% because of taxes, and then evading the taxes so that he would tell them that they're getting their fair share and they were not. And then also, this is on his archived website, cobratate.com. He did, in fact, admit to doing the so-called lover boy method of telling these women, like, we're going to be married, we're going to have children, we're going to be in some kind of like long-term committed relationship if you work for me. If you do this campsite, if you do the OnlyFans with these other girls that work for me. And he was using this to instruct other men on what to do, which is weird, right? Like, I don't think anybody else has attempted to do this, so why would you need to instruct anyone?
Is it against the law to teach people how to commit crimes?
Another thing he added in his explanation of this business model is that you need a so-called bottom bitch or a main bitch that you start off with another girl that will do the actual work of convincing other women, because she, you know, she lets their guard down.
So like
convincing other
Allison
women.
Mack during the sex cult in Hollywood. Yeah,
exactly. So he said that he was dating this woman named Vivian. I don't know if that's her real name, who was the bottom bitch that did this work for him.
Mm-hmm.
They were together for 6 years, and he said that she was unassuming because she was so young. And she was convincing these women to work for him, downplaying that they were in a long-term relationship to make them think that they were special.
Yeah.
So he said at once in this video clip that this woman was 21, and he said they met and started dating 6 years prior. So
it's kind of like
if you do the math,
it's kind of like Dane Cook with the girl that he just married, and everyone's like looking at the age of like when they started dating. And you're like, ugh.
Yeah. If you do the math, they met and started dating when Vivian was 15 years old. And at 21, when she was 21,
and
that's when he started the cam business and
when
had
was
her
this?
work in the
And
cam
when was
business.
this? In what jurisdiction?
They met in Slovakia,
Okay.
and he had her move in with him when he was still living in the UK, I believe. But even then, she was not an adult at the time, and he was 26, I believe, when they met. So he basically admitted on video to dating an underage girl, so that doesn't look good for him, and admitted to tax evasion on video.
Yep.
And yeah, he also, there are issues with the timeline of things where he contradicts himself, and Tristan does as well.
About when they shut down the campsite.
When they started and when they shut down the campsite.
Yep.
Or this like fake business, as he called it. So they're saying in other interviews it's 10 plus years ago. In other interviews it's 6 years ago. In other interviews he says it's 4 years ago. And as late as 2020, he even said on video that there were still a few women working for him in this manner.
Yep.
So
I mean,
that seems like at least an omission of truth, if not an
at
outright
the end
lie.
at the end of the day, for me, the hardest part is that when people hear human trafficking, they think of somebody being sold into sex slavery, a la what we're talking about with Sound of Freedom. And for a lot of this, what it comes down to is that these women were duped, but made choices of their own volition to do this, which is very hard for a lot of people to muster up the same anger for whatever, right or wrong.
It's literally a lesser crime to traffic an adult than a child, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to downplay at all that these women still made the full choice to do porn.
To do what they wanted. Yeah, they made their decisions. They're adults.
In at least in his explanation, because they believed that they would get his favor and be in an exclusive relationship with him. And I don't even know to the extent that that's true. But there are literally leaked text messages between girls who worked for him talking about how they were going to each convince him that they were madly in love with him so that they could get extra privileges over the other girls and be allowed to, you know, go out, leave the compound in Romania, have more freedoms. And they were joking about this, saying they're such good actresses that they should get a Netflix show or something. And that quote was like misconstrued massively, that they were making everything up.
Yeah.
They were just joking that we're going to convince him so well that we're madly in love with him that he's going to let us leave the house.
Yeah. I'm like, the hard part is still always going to be that people are gonna be like, look, these women made the choice to do this, so it's hard part for people to buy into this. Do we want to show the clip?
We should. Yeah, I'm
show?
referring to a lot of clips, but I highly recommend that if you guys are interested in learning about this, to watch the Willie Mack Show's 2 recent videos about Andrew Tate that came from 2 weeks ago and 11 days ago.
All right, here we go.
Work for him.
So the recruitment process is the same as the PhD course. You message them on Instagram. I don't mention webcam until after I've had sex with the girl. If you're on dates and you're trying to mention it and shit, it just doesn't work. It puts them off. I'd never do that. That's disgusting. I'm not a whore. It's just not gonna work. If she passes the PhD test and she wants to be with you.
This is the PhD test, by the way.
And this is the test. A quality woman, after you sleep with her, when your attention drops, will do anything it takes to get your attention back up, to retain you as a man. So a quality woman will bend her normal rules. A girl who would perhaps never buy you coffee is now prepared to do something for you, will bend her normal rules to get your attention back post-sex. If she passes
I'm now going to ask every girl I ever meet, will you please buy me a coffee? Just to see what happens. Just to see what happens, you know.
PhD test and she wants to be with you, then you start mentioning things like, yeah, but you know, you're always busy, you're always at work, you can come work for me. She has to respect you and love you and want to work with you. And that's done through positively inspirational and motivating person.
He was very open about doing all of this on his
Okay.
There's more
you wanna
though
keep
that we
going?
need to
Okay.
show.
course, which was on his website.
Again,
until
you guys should go watch. I don't know if this dude's gonna copyright us.
By
for
the
this.
way, Andrew Tate's website, cobratate.com, where he had all of this
With me to
listed
wish-
out, is now not available on the Internet Archive. And I don't know if you can presume that he did something to scrub that from the archive or what happened, but this was the same website that was linked at the end of all of his old videos.
Yeah. Yep. Here we go.
a few dates, sleep with her, test if she's quality, get her to fall in love with me to where she'd do anything I'd say, and then get her on webcam. For fuck's sake, guys, he read, studied, and recommended books on pimping.
I'm gonna send you a book. It's a guy called Pimpin' Ken, who's a street pimp in the 90s, and he wrote a book, 50 Laws of the Game. And one of the laws of the game is a hoe without instruction is headed for destruction.
Now, the Tate's defense has essentially been to just gaslight everybody. They say the webcam business hasn't existed in years. Sometimes it's 6 years.
How about the webcam business?
I'm not even in that. I haven't been in that business for like 6 years.
The Tate News account, which is constantly retweeted by them, says it was 10 years ago. Tristan says it was 4 years ago. Then just last week, Andrew Tate said no, it actually was 10 years ago, even though 10 months earlier, he said it was only 6 years ago.
And that was a past life. You're talking about something that happened 10 years ago.
It was that long ago.
It was about 10 years ago, yeah. It was at the very beginning of it.
It's hands down the most inconsistent story on the internet, where every time I look into it, I discover yet another inconsistency.
Here he is saying he's still doing it 3 years ago.
Do you do that still?
I have 3 girls who still work for me.
The fact is, the webcam business does exist. It still exists. They just don't have the girls' webcam anymore. Instead, they use a combination of TikTok and OnlyFans. But don't be fooled, the business model remains the same. That business model being extract as much money out of simps as possible.
I'd pull in, let's say, $3,000 a day, $4,000 a day.
Yeah, I'm teaching guys how to run OnlyFans companies because OnlyFans is the best hustle in the world.
This is from 2020. Saying their webcam business doesn't exist anymore is a technicality. They're still doing it, just in a more modern way.
That means that the cam site itself, was shut down, but the business, or at least the front of a business, was not shut down, at least as late as 2020.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also point this out. I don't know if you guys care whether Andrew Tate is a hypocrite or
There's
not.
a fair point here.
But
can an individual get something removed from an internet archive? I don't think that's possible.
I don't know why. I don't know why it's been scrubbed from the Internet Archive, or if anyone did that, or why it's not available anymore. But it was, and it was screenshotted by a lot of people, and it's a real quote from the website. And I wanted to point out that in this Tucker interview, Tucker asks Andrew Tate, "What do you think about porn?" And he universally condemns it, says that it's destructive to men, it's destructive to relationships, it's destroying, it's at least one of the factors that is destroying the relations between the sexes right now and why people aren't in relationships, and that men are turning to porn because they're lonely and feel powerless and weak, and that they need to step up and be better. He's condemning porn, but at the same time saying that he has, built his wealth in order to be anti-fragile against the Matrix, and he built that wealth off of porn. It doesn't make much sense to me, and it's hypocritical. I don't know if you guys care whether Andrew Tate is a hypocrite or not, because, you can enjoy an Andrew Tate clip or, find him funny. I find him funny quite a lot often. I agree with him quite often, but don't deny that there aren't some inconsistencies or contradictions here. And another thing, someone in the chat said, wasn't Ghislaine Maxwell the bottom girl in Epstein's operation? That's absolutely true, which is why I can surmise that at least one of the 2 Romanian nationals that is getting charged, as well as Tristan and Andrew Tate, could possibly be Vivian, the girl that he started dating when she was 15. And those 2, I think those 2 other Romanian nationals that were getting charged were women. And another way that he kind of misconstrued the truth in this interview is that he said the women who were supposedly victims of this cam ring are on his side, and they're saying that they weren't victims. The only ones who are going against the prosecution are the ones who are also getting charged.
Yeah.
So they have an interest in saying that there were no victims.
Yeah.
I don't know. It says there are 7 injured parties. We don't know their identities. I'm just saying there are a lot of omissions of the truth, and it's 100% deliberate that he's framing it this way and that he's not telling the whole story. And
You think that Tucker should have pushed back harder?
I don't want to do the thing that people do when Joe Rogan interviews like Alex Jones or something, and they say, you should have pushed back more, you should have whatever. That's irrelevant to me. Like, as Andrew Tate is, giving all of his opinions about society, about cryptocurrency, about men and women and porn and all that, you don't really need to push back on his opinions. That's irrelevant. His opinions can stand to judgment of public opinion, whatever. But you need to push back when it comes to actual facts and recent events that even the mainstream media is not correctly reporting on. And I agree that they're doing a terrible job.
The media is ruining
discrediting
it for
themselves and discrediting all criticism of this man. Because, the BBC journalist made an absolute fool of herself. She was like, well, aren't you just a misogynist? And that's why he walked out of the interview. It was a disaster. They don't actually want to do the real investigative work, so it's left up to YouTubers, which is pathetic.
It's because of the news cycle. They have to get the things out fast. They can't afford to wait and do it as an expose because there's less money in that than there is in just pushing out the pieces that are, couched between, it's 2 half-truths couched between a bunch of fluff and buzzwords that end up doing a disservice to what they're actually trying to expose, which is, unfortunately, that this dude has got a lot of inconsistencies in his story.
And once again, I am going to emphasize this. I am not downplaying at all that the victims of, or supposed victims of this human trafficking scheme, because he hasn't been convicted yet, definitely had a role to play in the position that they ended up in. Yeah. They absolutely made their own decisions.
There was
and there are a lot of decisions that victims of abuse and R-word make that could have gotten them out of that situation. Totally. And it sounds like victim blaming. I don't really care if you say that. It's a buzzword. Maybe you can call me victim blaming right now. But they definitely made the wrong decisions that got them into this situation. They didn't care about their morals. As he said, these women objected to it. All of them objected to it at first. But they gave in when they thought that they could get his attention and money. And that was on them.
What is it you said?
Not totally on them, but when a crime is done to someone, if you're walking with money hanging out of your pockets in the hood and you get mugged, then you probably shouldn't have been doing that. But that doesn't make mugging not a crime. And you can disagree even with Romanian prosecutors' legal definition of trafficking if you want to. But you can't deny that if all of this is true, it falls under the definition of trafficking. It's force, fraud, and coercion. Those are the conditions to define something as trafficking. And they're claiming that he's using fraud, meaning he told them that they were going to be in a cohabitation or marriage situation. He was going to give them children. And also that he was defrauding them of their money by lying to them that he was taking a fair share of their cut, and instead he was tax evading to do that, which he admitted to on video. And if you want to find that video, go to the Willie Mac Show's videos about this that he recently posted. They're the last 2 videos that he posted on his channel.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.